All right, guys. Episode 13 of Bmoney Beastin podcast. I'm here with somebody I greatly admire, Coach Nick Purler, Purler Wrestling Academy out in Missouri, All American at Oklahoma State. Man, everybody sees you, right? Like, if you're in the wrestling community, you know what Purler is, right? Like, it's a staple in the wrestling community, no matter what state you're in. We're in North Georgia. We've been to one of your camps. You pull kids from everywhere and you promote better than almost anybody I've seen, right? Like there's camps all over the country, the Jeff Jordan camp and other things, but you don't see those people. You see Purler all the time. And I think it would be, I really want to know like your story, like how it led to Purler Wrestling Academy and that kind of thing. But before we get to that, how did you get so good at marketing your brand?
Yeah, so I don't even think about marketing. I just like coaching and sharing what I know. So basically, um, before social media, because I've been doing this since 1999. When I was in Texas, I didn't like teaching and coaching, and didn't like Dallas, Texas. Wanted to move back home. I used to see jujitsu's, not jujitsu, but like karate centers next to Walmart or whatever. And my girlfriend at the time, now wife, I was like, one day I'm gonna do that for wrestling. And I had talked about it. She had talked about it, but it just never happened. And I was like, okay, we can go to Oklahoma or we can go back to St. Louis area, Wentzville, where I'm from, but I'm not staying in Dallas, And she's like, okay, well, and I was like, I'm going to start wrestling academy, just like what, you and I have talked about since, we were 18 and 19 years old. And she's like, okay, so just kind of quit everything and moved back to St. Louis and dove in. But back then, I would spend, I don't know, 6 hours a week probably. I used to type up big newsletters. I only had an email list of like probably 37 people, but I would just type and like sharing advice. I've always just liked coaching and sharing what I know. And, some people write books and they go, I didn't write this book for you. I wrote this book for me. It's just a way to get all this stuff out of your head. So for me, when I post on social media, I'm just sharing advice or coaching. Or for example, someone might call and or text or email, and I send a response. I'm like, that was pretty darn good advice. I'm going to put that out there on social media. And so, but I've been doing this since before social media, really before most people even had email, just typing up like, I forgot what we even call them, just like newsletters, and then just emailing it out to my academy members and coaching friends, and I would just get email addresses and I would just had this like newsletter type of a thing going. So I'll tell you, when I was at Oklahoma State, me and my brother, we used to do camps for Oklahoma State, obviously, and I would always say mat number 5 was mine. And he and I would find the kids at camp, within usually 2 sessions, there's 280 kids on a big indoor football field where the mats are at. And I would have about 40 kids who I knew wanted to be there. And I was like, okay, you guys are on mat 5. And that was my mat. And I was taking command of the mat. And when we, Tommy Chesbro was former coach at Oklahoma State, and was considered before he passed away years ago, one of the best technicians in America. And I think he definitely was, in addition to Jim Shields, which is kind of an unknown coach, is kind of a mentor of mine when I first got to Oklahoma State. And so, he would have us teach practices and run practices. And my brother and I would have Tony kind of evaluate me. Then we'd get in fights because we fought all the time. You sucked, you talked too long, you repeated yourself. So that I would evaluate him. And then we would drive home. We're 19 years old. We were driving back home in between sessions and kind of discussing. They say Beyonce will do, a 3-hour concert, and she'll go home that night at 2 a.m. and she'll watch her concert and she'll reevaluate herself right there. And, we didn't have video, things weren't videoed back then. But so I've always just been that way. When it comes to wrestling, my younger brothers, his friends would avoid coming over to his house because Nick and Tony were going to make them wrestle. And we'd have a practice plan lined up. Scott Schatzman, he was a 3-time All-American at Northwestern, 4-time undefeated state champ in Missouri. I think 1-time Fargo champ. One time he was run up to Eric Guerrero. So, I'm like 6 or 7 years older than him. That kid could not go to a tournament and leave the mat without my brother and I grabbing him and coaching him, which he loved it because he was a hardcore kid. So I've always just been that way with wrestling, and it's been very annoying to a lot of people around me. So, Stefan Mishik, everybody knows, who Stefan, world champion, is. And I was chatting with his dad about 2 years ago at the World Cup, and he's like, dude, you post on social media like 6-7 times a day. He's like, it's like you're dropping bombs the whole day. He's like, what do? Do you just sit around all day and think about bombs to drop? He's like, every time I see you post, me and Stefan are like, dude, this is another good one. I mean, so there's a long-winded answer is I don't think I'm marketing and promoting. I just like to share what I know. And I feel like, from a business standpoint, I do also know that what Zig Ziglar says is to get what you want, you got to help other people get what they want, right? So when I help people, they're probably more likely to follow. A percentage of them are likely to come to our camps. So it does help from a business standpoint. And, we've really blown up. I guess we've 7x'd our company in the past 6 years. So, so it is working, but I didn't set out to be a marketer. I just like what I do. And I like the social media is a platform to coach through. And I've just always been this way since I started wrestling at 11 years old.
That's an amazing answer, and I love the long-winded. You talk as long as you want. That was great. That was very important. Social media, and it's funny that we're on that topic real quick. I have pushed and pushed and pushed, like even in our local area. You got, like, for instance, I don't know if you know like Cleveland High School in Cleveland, Tennessee is like a powerhouse down here. And they do it better than anybody in our area, right? Like how they utilize social media, and they promote their kids, and like you can't go a day without seeing 10 to 12 to 15 posts about the girls program or the boys program or the middle school or whatever. And I push that all the time. And I even mentioned it on another episode of the podcast. I'm like, you're looking at a free platform to promote what you're trying to do, right? And when you're looking at kids, especially today, like you were talking about back in 1999, you were putting out newsletters, right? This is prior to Facebook, MySpace, whatever it was. Like today, if you're the demographic of kids that would fit your narrative, right, or 6 to 18-year-old kids for the most part, right, that are trying to come to your camps, things like that. Where are most of those kids at, right? Like, are the parents of the young kids? They're on social media. So like almost a no-brainer to put that information, out in the open. And, because every time I see you, like I see every one of your videos you post, and one of them I loved. It was a couple of weeks ago, I guess. You were talking about weight cutting, right? A smart way to weight cut. And you were like, "Well, I got to make 140. Well, let's do it the night before. You could eat a little bit up, and then you got, maybe you got to shed a pound at the end of the day. But now you're not starving." And it was just like brilliant advice, right? And it was a quick, like 45-second, like bam, but it made so much sense, and it was helpful to everybody, right? And it's coming from a source that is a reliable source. So I think all that together has built that Purler brand into something really special. Man, I'm kind of curious. You're from the state of Missouri originally, correct?
Yes.
And how did you go from Missouri in high school? Like, how did you even get into the sport of wrestling? And how did that lead you to Oklahoma State? Because I'm assuming you wrestled for John. Did you wrestle for John Smith?
Yeah. This is a very cool story that all of your followers and listeners should listen to. You never know. And I always tell these two stories. I remember the semifinals my junior year of high school state. I was nervous about this kid, probably a little bit scared. I had seen him the year before. He was a weight class above me, warmed up like a machine, wrestled like a machine, was a very great athlete. And I think he was third in the state that year, but and then I have him on my bracket, and I had been watching him. We never met. And So here I am a year later, a year and a half later, have this very tough opponent who would I was like, we're going to have to we're going to have to square off here before long, but he impressed me. And I want to give that. And I tell my athletes, because a big part of our success is we teach them how to think and how to act, not just wrestling technique. We practice shaking hands. We practice making eye contact. We practice walking onto a wrestling mat and walking off of the wrestling mat. We give like little rehearsals, and I give demonstrations. If I lose a wrestling match, even if it's state finals, the most devastating time of my career, this is how I exit the wrestling mat and wrestling arena. In fact, Terry Steiner, he used to coach at Iowa under Zaleski. He called the high school of Nick and Matt Lester. They were All-Americans for OU, some of my best wrestlers ever. They were freshmen. They both lost in the state finals. And then Steiner was so impressed with how they walked off of the mat after they lost. They didn't sprint off and grab their backpack and sprint for the exit. They didn't cry. They shook both coaches' hands and they grabbed their backpack and they walked all the way across and all the way around the far corner, because that was where their fans were. They didn't exit. So all of these things have mattered, and they've helped our athletes. But how I got from Missouri to Oklahoma State is very interesting. A guy named Bruce Burnett. He was a high school coach, right, in Idaho. A high school coach from Idaho. And so we went overseas. My brother and I made the cadet national world team. It was the Pan Ams, and we competed in Colombia, South America. And that's the first trip I ever made. I only made a few, but and he was my coach, and we impressed him because we showed up early, stayed late. We were just like you said with my social media, my coaching. If I had it to do all over again, I probably would have enjoyed it more. I wouldn't say I shouldn't have worked so hard, but I'm just go, and I turn it into a job. And, I love learning the kind of new way, like the Penn State and Oklahoma State and the David Taylor advice and the Kyle Dake advice, Helen Maroulis advice about how to enjoy it, the journey, because I just throw punches all day. That's all I do. And I've learned to enjoy life a lot more over the past 15 years. But so people are impressed by that. And so Bruce Burnett was impressed by me and my brother and our just sheer desire and dedication. We go for 3-mile runs on the beach in Florida at training camp. I remember blowing everybody away. My brother was a distant second, and we were freaking hard workers. And so he becomes the assistant coach at Oklahoma State. Most high school coaches don't get to do that, right? Kevin Dresser went from a high school coach to the coach at Virginia Tech. Now he's at Iowa State. I'm a massive Kevin Dresser fan. But so he remembered us. And Joe C. had his eyes on other guys. And also Jim Shields, who was an All-American at Oklahoma State, ended up being a coach at Mizzou. And just some training camps and stuff. He knew about the Purlers, and he had done some practices in St. Louis and little clinics and stuff that we went to. So him and Bruce are like, no, we got to get these Purlers. I know these guys. So I made an impression on a man 6 years earlier, Jim Shields, and then 4 years before that, Bruce Burnett. Well, 3.5 years. Then, my junior year, 3 years later, he and Jim are pushing to recruit Nick and Tony Purler because I had impressed these guys 4 to 6 years earlier. At one was a 2-week trip, a week in Florida and a week overseas in South America. And then, Jim Shields, we impressed him in maybe 1 or 2 weekend training camps. Just like the semis opponent my junior year, and I won, but I did not wrestle that good. You are constantly putting energy out there into the universe. And that's the reason we practice body language at my practices and camps. We talk about it. We preach it. I just did a post today. On body language, and I just shared it it's called The Traditional Male. I'm a little bit of a traditionalist, I guess you could say. And it says constantly work on standing tall and relaxed with your shoulders slightly pulled back. Good posture will increase your confidence and change the way you perceive yourself. But it also changes the way you perceive others, that others perceive you. So that's how I ended up at Oklahoma State. I just was a good kid and I did the right thing. I never got in trouble. I got decent grades, not great. I hated school. School's not built for people like me. I always thought I was dumb. I had my 9th grade teacher stood me up with about 8 of the kids and said we were going to be on welfare one day. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen. But I just didn't like school, but I did okay. I guess I got 2.5 in high school and college, but I showed up. But I worked like an animal and I was always a good person. I didn't drink a beer until I was like 22 years old. I didn't party. I was just a serious athlete. And I think that, when you're putting that out, people recognize that and they notice it and they remember you. So I always tell my athletes, you have got to understand that all of this matters. Nowadays, I mean, you're on YouTube, dude. You're on Flow Wrestling. You're on you're on Huddle. You go out there and it's okay to get beat. As my dad said, he goes, but it's not okay to get beat up. And my dad, one time, my brother was wrestling this guy. He's 4 times a state finalist. And my brother kind of lost the match and was like walking, and my dad rewound it. It was like VHS back then. He's like, my dad was a mean, tough iron worker. He's like, no son of mine is going to walk off a effing wrestling mat like that. Rewind that. That is unacceptable. My kids don't. And there used to be a tournament called Rockbridge Tournament of Champions. So they wrestled 16-man bracket. They wrestled for 15th and 16th place. I think it's probably illegal nowadays. But there's a 16th. There's a last place dude, right? And my dad's like, I don't care if you get 16th place at Rockbridge Tournament of Champions. He goes, you walk like you own this freaking place. You hear me? And my brother years later ended up wrestling at the Goodwill games. And, he said I felt like I was scared. I was getting ready to choke. And I started talking to myself and I'm like, no, screw this. Act like you own this place. And he slapped on good body language and he went out there and won. But so, I think that's how I ended up at Oklahoma State. And it's not just wrestling moves and technique. You cannot make it alone. And some people say, no one ever helped me. And I'm like, why would they? You sleep in class, you throw pencils and you cuss out the teacher, you always show up late. I mean, people will give up on you. And so many people who never got a break and never had anybody help them, I'm like, I think they tried, they just eventually gave up. And so that's another little speech we have in our practices too. So always remember that we are affecting other humans around us. And this is a world with 7 billion people and nobody makes it alone. And I think that you should care about what people think about you. The high level people, I don't care what low level people think about me, but high level people, you should care and it should be something you think about and you're going to need them. And that's how I ended up at Oklahoma State from the state of Missouri, which back then was not a very tough wrestling state. I'm not going to lie. So there you go.
That's really interesting. And when you brought up at the end there where you said that, you can't do it alone. I've said, me and Bryson, we had that conversation, not long ago. I'm like, teenagers, right? I'm learning right now the teenager thing. Like everybody, you're a parent, you've had a teenager, teenagers aren't the easiest to deal with in the first place. Like they go through, I'm in that stage. My dad was telling me not long ago, like you're in that stage where they know everything. Like that's where I'm at right now. Right. And I was like, man, you got to think, right? Like, do you pay your membership fees? Well, no. Do you drive yourself to school? Well, no, because I don't have a driver yet, right? Do you buy your school supplies? Do you make your meals? These things, and even teachers that are helping you tutor you right now, you're having trouble with Algebra 1. Are you doing that by yourself or are they assisting you, right? you got people that you carpool with at times to get to practice, and you have coaches that's invested years and years with you, right? That's not just you. So whatever you accomplish is kind of a community. I'm trying to think of the right word, like a cumulative effort. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And whatever you don't accomplish really is on you too, right? That's on you because you have the support system to do it. It's up to you to do it. And that goes for anything in life. You know, if you want to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever, you know, there are people that are going to help you get there. But I agree with that too. On the other side of that, about people giving up on you, right?
Yeah.
And this is and saying this is a kind of a personal story here, but I'll tell you, and I think it's a good correlation of what you were saying. Last year, my son got in a lot of trouble at school, right? It was the first time in his life he'd ever gotten some trouble. And you started seeing people kind of like back off of him and like kind of, okay, this is a whatever right now. And he's seen that, luckily, and switched back gears and got back on a good playing field. But like, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. You want people that you respect, like you said, high-level people, to, you know, think highly of you. And there's a lot of people that are always going to judge and criticize and things like that. And you don't need to, that you can be blind to that. But I agree with everything you just said. And that's an amazing, amazing message to pass along to the masses. With Purler, I want to ask another thing with the Wrestling Academy. You started this in 1999. You moved back to Missouri and you said, hey, this is what I want to do. What was that process like? Like finding a place to be to run it, like funding and like the whole thing. Like, how did you like build it from like nothing?
Yeah, it was just, you know, my wife and I, we had two very good jobs in Texas as public school teachers, and nice house, sold the house. We had, my son was like 2 months old and my daughter was like 1.5 years. And we moved back and she, with no jobs. And, you know, she took a job making $8 an hour, just working weekends, taking care of like mentally disabled adults, and which was a good thing because that was a weekend. And then I did get a job my first year as a private school teacher because I could not teach in the state of Missouri. And so I was making $14,000 a year as a private school teacher. And, you know, we just downsized financially and started over. It's not easy to do, but you know, my dad was like against it. And he's, you know, there was a few family interventions. Even my brother and sister went on at one time and, you know, be a man, get a real job, you know, this is a pipe dream and get, you know, so, but I just never, I am not really hard headed. I just do what I want to do. I don't know why. I just simply don't care. People do not get through to me. It just doesn't happen. You know, I knew I was all in. I knew I was going to make it work. And I said, I'm going to make it work. It's already working because by the time the school year was over, I already had 3 locations and I was making a little bit more financially than I was teaching, but, you know, no retirement and all of that nice stuff, but I was doing good. And, then I was a stay-at-home dad for a couple of years and I would work during the day. And then I was gone in the evenings 4 nights a week. And I was gone a lot of weekends. And, you know, I basically just punched my holes in a wall until I could walk through it. And I just punched through about 1,000 walls until I made it work. And my wife helped, so a lot of support there. But it's just basically, I would rent out high schools and I would go to tournaments and I'd put flyers out. And then once we got, you know, some Purler wrestling gear and sometimes the kids were wearing it because we're not club or academy. So our kids wrestle for their own youth and high school teams and they come to us on the side. I like to say we're sort of like the Sylvan Learning Center for wrestling. We don't do a club, which is nothing wrong with that. But we're the first academy in America. And, you know, a friend of mine is extremely wealthy, lives that way. He's like, dude, you started in the industry. He's like, there's academies all over. He's like, you were the first one. And he got involved in like February of 2000, I think it was, Sean Milson, his dad, Pat. But so, yeah, I just basically would go to tournaments and then, you know, this is America, right? When you win, your phone rings and everything comes down to winning. And we won because I'm not going to lie. I got very good very fast. My first year of high school teaching, I was a joke. My second year of high school teaching and coaching, I was always a very good teacher. But coaching, I don't know. I was very good. My second year, third year of high school coaching, tremendous. And then probably year number 2 or 3 of academy, which is a whole lot different than coaching the same 30 kids 6 days a week and then twice a week in the off season. Now you have locations, you have 34 kids here, 22 there. And then, eventually, we have 500 academy members that train with us every week right now. And I only run one practice a week. So, I have built systems in place. We have our core skills, our elite program and world-class wrestler program. I have practice plans for takedown machine 3-position camp and dream season camp and our 28-day camp. So I have 4 practice plans in place for camp. And I have 3 practice plans in place, plus a beginner's practice plan for beginners clinics. So I have 4 practice plans in place for all levels of wrestling. And on our online academy, we've got 700 members now train with us every week. And that's how I got to know Stevan Mišić. He bought my DVDs back in the day. His dad did. Nick Lee, Colton Schultz, he won those 3 world titles in high school. He kind of quit school and started homeschooling, and they got my DVDs, and he and his brother Trenton trained every day. So there's some high-level guys who kind of grew up using my DVDs. Caden Henschel, he's got, 500,000 followers on social media. His grandpa had my DVDs, and so he would work with him. So we've turned that into an online academy now, and that's broken down into basics, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So all my, when I first started the academy thing, I realized I had to get very organized because, I'm as a high school teacher, as long as I showed up to work, I had a job. Then when you get 5 years of tenure, no one can touch you, right? So I can get fired every single day, and I needed to win so that parents came back and paid me, because back then they would just hand me a check. So, so the reason I made it work is because once I realized I had no job security, and that our kids had to win, and parents aren't going to give me 3 months, 6 months, or 2 or 3 years with their kid. They're going to give me like a month, 2 months, and they need to see improvement, especially nowadays. So I already feel like I was a very good coach, but I had to become the best classroom manager, the best guy that can put a worker to work. I remember years ago, a guy kind of moved in my territory, and he was a world champion, and he was like emailing me and I was like, that's fine, whatever, I don't care. And I was like, if you can take a 7, I go, once you shine that medal around, that's going to attract people. But after the first month, people aren't going to care about your shiny medal. And I said this, if you can take a 7-year-old with SpongeBob SquarePants underwear hanging out the top of his singlet, and you can teach him how to finish the single leg flawlessly in an hour and 10 minutes, and you can blow his mom and dad away by this improvement of one 7-year-old in one practice, then you're going to have a career. If you can't do that, you're not my competition. I'm really not even worried about it. And that is the space I live in. It's and so I had to develop everything. Now, our camp practice plans, our academy practice plans, and our online academy practice plans, there's a lot of, they're the same. They're just divided up into, what we can do in a 5-day camp, what we can do in a 14-day camp. So, so I became very organized, and I became sort of obsessed with the 80-20 rule and the common positions. And I became very obsessed with the 95-5 rule, which is 95% of your points come from 5% of the wrestling. And that's what our smaller timeline camps, our more basic academy stuff is built around. And so when you really hone in where the success lies, and you don't leave, it's called chasing the idea fairy. Some people hop around. There's people watching this right now. They have 37 diet books. I'm like, bro, the diet book you bought 21 years ago would have worked, Another gym membership. They hop around from idea to idea, or get rich quick scheme to another one, or job to job, wife to wife, husband to husband. We do this as humans, right? And sometimes you just got to say, this is where this is working. I need to do more of this. It's called double down. It's called triple down. And I'm the master at doubling down. And maybe that comes down to just the hard-headedness that I have. But when I started doing that, we started winning at such a high level. So my 4th year of doing this, Bucky Pascalia, his boys wrestled for me. They were tremendous, nationally ranked, one wrestled at Mizzou. All of them won state titles except for one of them. And we had so many youth kids. And back, I always say, if your coach is okay with you wearing a Purler Wrestling singlet or shirt, then do that. But if your coach is not, then don't, because, we're academy. And, during the 8 month of off season, they all wear Purler Wrestling stuff. If they're smart, I think they should. And a lady, Bucky, was working the floor for Missouri USA Wrestling, and she was like, "It is so nice of Mr. Purler to buy singlets for these state finalists." And this is like 6U, 8U, 10U, 12U, 14U. Every 3 to 5 pounds is a weight class. There's literally 900 weight classes in this state finals. He's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Well, everywhere I look is a Purler Wrestling singlet." And I just think it's very nice of him to take his success and donate singlets. He goes, "No, ma'am." He's like, "These are all Nick's athletes. He didn't buy singlets for him." And she's like, "You are kidding me." She's like, "Every other kid has a Purler Wrestling singlet." He's like, "Oh, this is like 25% of them." We had like 89 kids in the state finals or something out of like 210 athletes. And I will tell you this sounds like I'm bragging, but it's true. In the past 6 years, this is 2024 now. So in the past 6 years in the state of Missouri, on average, 21% of all of Missouri's high school state champions train on our black mats in Moscow Mills or our academy location in Columbia, Missouri. 21%. And in 2021, it was 24%. 1 in 4 of all of the entire state of Missouri's high school state champions trained with us. And I'm not saying they came to one practice when they were 6 and here they are 18 years old, because a lot of club or academy guys do that, right? Because, hey, they're trying to make money. And so, no, we actually had a girl who didn't train with us her senior year, started with us in 6th grade, never lost a high school match, won her 4 state title. I did not count her in our results her senior year. And because I don't play games. So when I say 21%, that's a legitimate 21%. And why are our athletes winning at that high of a level? It just comes down to living within the positions, because when you have a system in place, it's telling you what to do. But by default, it's also telling you what not to do. So if you take a weightlifting plan from, NebraskaFootball.com and you want to be a football lineman, you go into Gold's Gym, you're not going to touch 98% of that equipment. Now you might want to. And this is where people screw up, because the kids and athletes and parents like, I would like to show 13 throws from a Russian 2-on-1. Screw it, we're going to do it. And I'm like, dude, the kid's 6, or the 18-year-old kid can't thumb block, head block, or down block. What are you doing? We don't need to be doing that. But see, it's called chasing the idea fairy, right? Just like the football kid, he's like, oh, there's a pulley machine over there. I'm going to pull on the pulley machine. It's like, no, you have to go over there. Here is the plan. But see, he wants to do it. And you have to be disciplined to say, the pulley machine is for the fat ladies. It's not for a guy that wants to be a football college wrestler, or a football college football player, or a college wrestler. So, I'm very strict with our coaches who help me, because I have a tremendous team of coaches who work for us and help us with our practices. Is don't deviate. Do not deviate from this practice plan whatsoever. And if you have kids who have outgrown this practice plan, they need to move up to elite, or they need to move up to the world-class wrestler program. It's no different than a gymnast. It's like, you're 17 years old. You're not a level 5 gymnast. No, you got to move up. And the girl's mom says, well, he doesn't want to practice 4 days a week. It's like, then quit, right? Because you should be level 8. And with level 8 comes 4 practices a week for 4 hours and a lot more advanced stuff. So we have a stair-stepping approach in our academy, and you probably can't do this at a high school level. In fact, I know you can't, and a youth coach can't do it either. But so just living within the practice plan and not deviating it, and they actually get better at it. Just like you're going to get better at your deadlift if you really focus on the technique, and you got a stopwatch and you're taking a 2-minute rest in between sets, and you've got a spotter and you've got good technique, right? Now, what happens if you go and you wore your legs out on the pulley machine because it just looked like it was cool? Like, dumbass, no, guess what? Now you just ruined your squat. You just ruined your deadlift. So is practicing three different ways to throw someone from a Russian 2-on-1, won't that help a little bit? No, it's going to ruin your career. Now, if you're a Greco guy, yes, because that is time that you're not scoring off your elbow controls. That's time you're not doing this. So it's called opportunity cost, because you have attacked this opportunity and it cost you because you're not living within the wheelhouse of where winning is to be had. And this is sort of a concept I learned at Oklahoma State too. And they basically said your wrestling needs to get smaller, not bigger. And they're like, Nick, I'm talking a long time, but you got to listen to this. So Bruce Burnett was like, what are you doing wrestling an overhook? I'm like, my brother and I were very cocky little kids because we got very good very fast, but we didn't have friends. I didn't spend the night at anybody's house. I just trained. I'm not going to lie. We were weird kids. And I had wrestling moves techniques taped all over my basement. We had a home mat. We sold our 4-wheeler, bought a home wrestling mat, and we actually used it. And we would do sprints in the creek. We had a sprint series we did in the creek. We had a big hill that we would climb for time. I mean, we were like obsessed little kids. And I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, Oklahoma State. And they were like, so me and my brother used to say we're dangerous. We're dangerous because we love technique. I love technique. I love drilling. Some kids say they don't like drilling. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The fact that I can put your arm behind your back against your will and turn you and hold you for 7 hours on your back. So to me, that's powerful. And only technique can do that, you know? So, and I'm like, I think I'm dangerous from there, Bruce. He goes, I said, I could wrestle anywhere. He's like, the problem is this, Nick. He's like, you're going to get a Bulgarian who underhooks for a living. And his family, his wife and kids are not going to have dinner tonight unless he scores with this underhook. He's like, because that's what they do in these countries. He's like, and you're not going to win. He's like, quit trying to wrestle from everywhere. Your wrestling needs to get smaller. We cannot wrestle in these crappy positions. And secondly, your individual wrestling needs to get smaller too. You are fast and quick. You need to use that. And he used John Smith as an example. And Kenny Monday, they wrestle completely different, but they're both Olympic champions. So, and I thought, okay, my wrestling needs to get smaller twice, you know, because first I got to, and he was like, take your wrestling notebook and wherever it says over, under, or overhook or over under chest to chest, rip, trash. Oh, crab ride, rip, trash. He's like, we don't wrestle from those positions. You're going to get beat. And so that's the reason I think having a system in place is very important. And I mean, I had a system. I put my DVDs out, which is now Online Academy. I put that out in 2005. But it was ready in 2002, maybe 2003. I just didn't have the money to do it because, you know, it's expensive to do things. But my plans and systems haven't changed a whole lot. Just a little bit of tweaking here and there. But
I've always found that your approach is really interesting. You know, you go like you were talking about being structured, which everything in my life I try to stay structured with. Like I pay the power bill at the same day of every month. I do everything structured. And I think it's interesting you said that because if you go into probably 80% of high school rooms in the United States, they're all over the place.
Yes,
right?
all over. No system.
No, nothing.
Yeah.
And like even like a couple years ago, like I walked into a high school room a couple of times in 1 week, and like one day, you know, you got the coach down there. He's like, "Well, I don't. This works sometimes, but you only in this situation, and I don't really recommend it, but we're gonna give it a shot anyway." And I remember hearing this, and I'm like, "Dude, like, what are we even like? This is a waste of time."
Waste of time.
So structure is a great thing, and like I'll give some guys credit in our area. Like Matt Pitts does a great job with that kind of thing. He runs Grindhouse down in Dalton, and he won the Southern Conference at Chattanooga back in the day. And Sean Russell, who was at Minnesota, he runs the club.
A lot of great coaches out there, so many.
And anybody who does that at a high level, they have a structured like approach to it. And I always found yours interesting though, because like you watch your videos and it's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Like you don't see that everywhere. That's like a very unique approach to the sport of wrestling compared to anything that most people see.
Yeah. Well,
where did that approach come from? That'll be my last question for the day. Where did that approach come from? That step by step by step by step.
Yeah. Well, some wrestling dads of mine, when I first started doing this, were like, they had seen someone teaching that way to little kids, and I thought that made sense, so I just started doing it. So everything we do is broken down into a step, and then the steps can get smaller too, right? So you know, there'll be less steps. So for a 7-year-old, we're going to have 7 steps to our underhook throw by. For more advanced kids, there's only 4 steps because they already know what a collar tie is, you know. So but and so, yeah, everything we do is based on steps. Just because what I learned was this: as a teacher, I learned 2 things: classroom management and teaching. The teacher is not a bad teacher because she doesn't know science. She's got her master's degree in science. She's a bad teacher because she doesn't know how to teach it. Secondly, she's a bad teacher because she can't manage the classroom. So, you know, I'm a big Robert Kiyosaki fan, and I learned some teaching methods from Harry Wong back when my teaching days. I like to control other humans, you know, and we've never done punishment push-ups one time. I don't scream and yell. I don't raise my voice. And my coaches are not allowed to give push-ups or scream and yell or make kids or just yell that they need to work harder. We're not going to line up and do sprints because someone's not working hard. We have methods in place. So my goal was to become the #1 teacher of the sport of wrestling in America, the #1 teacher. And to do that, I needed to become the #1 classroom manager, to learn to manage kids. Now, and some people say, you know, do you allow parents in your academy practices? I go, I encourage it. You know, why do you think that 26,000 square foot wrestling facility just north of Wentzville is there? Why do you think there's old Dollar General store in Sonto, Missouri that you know that I own? That's Purler Wrestling. You know, we're looking at a 38,000 square foot place in Southern Illinois right now to expand girls camps into, which I don't think that's going to work. And we're going to build for sure a 9,700 square foot bunkhouse and kitchen in Centralia if this deal falls through. It's already approved. It's done. I just got to. So how are these places there? It's not because I was an All-American at Oklahoma State. You know, it's not because I was ranked #1 in the nation, you know, my senior year at Oklahoma State, or that John Smith was my coach my last 3 years of wrestling, because he was. It's not that. Our kids are winning because of classroom management systems and my obsessiveness with coaching and getting people from point A to point B fast and quick. So people say, there's no shortcut. And I go, yeah, but there is a fast track. There is a fast track. You have been lifting weights for 3 years in high school. You're a junior. You're no stronger than you were when you started. So you need to quit being patient. Something's wrong. Same way in wrestling. We've got to start winning very quickly. And it does come down to systems, wrestling systems, a weightlifting system and a routine. right? Which we also have that. My son-in-law and my daughter own that's Purler Performance, purlerperformance.com. It's strength and conditioning for combat sports. And then my son is in, has striking and jiu-jitsu academies also. So we all kind of like, and they help me with the wrestling. So we all kind of share the wrestling bit. So, everything we do, my son has his jiu-jitsu programs broken down into steps. So, and he's a blue belt. So he's running practices now at his gym, and then his black belts run the higher level stuff. And he's teaching them. They're like, so my son is now doing this, and my daughter and son-in-law are doing these same methods that we have, step-by-step system, 95-5 rule, all right, for the beginners and intermediate kids, 80-20 rule for the more advanced kids. Wrestling gets smaller, not uncommon positions or specialty positions or inferior positions, rip, trash can. We're not going to do that. We're not going to sit on the bouncy ball at my gym and do curls with the pink dumbbells. That's for the 60-year-olds. You're not going to do that. Those are good. The pulley machine, the Thigh Master, that is good stuff, but not for you because you're a young man and you want to be strong, right? So, and then on top of the organization of our sport, we also have to be the best teachers and the best classroom managers. And once you put all three of those together, now practices go like that. And now we have entered the fast track, and we can see amazing improvement very quickly. And I'll say that in the past it's 3 years, but there was a 2.5-year period, because the recruiting cycle just kind of ended a few months ago. In 2.5 years, 22, 23, and half of 24, we had 39 of our athletes commit to and sign Division I wrestling scholarships. And a bunch went NAIA and Division II and Division III. And, and that's with Missouri kids, right? We're not in Pennsylvania. We're not in Ohio. We're not in New York.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing very well with Missouri kids. And they work hard, just as hard as anyone else, but you know how it is in Pennsylvania. I mean, everybody's a workout partner. Where in Missouri, our best guys will go they don't, it's the state semis before they have a decent match, because when you get really, really good in a state like Missouri or some of these normal wrestling states, it's almost a disadvantage because, no one's been on your legs in a month and a half, right. No one's locked you in a cradle in 2 years in a match, So all of our success comes down to those three things: system, classroom management, and master teachers. And then when you put those things together, now the lady who has her master's degree in science, how are her students doing? They're doing tremendous because she's learning to put the workers to work. She has an organized approach to teaching, and she, she knows her subject matter, right?
Right.
And it's organized, which is kind of organized for her because the book has it all mapped out. So that's sort of was my vision about year 2 or 3, and I started seeing inefficiencies, and I started sharing back to my teaching days when I was in training, and they're talking about classroom management. And my job is to be a facilitator. I should not be working harder than the kids. The kids shouldn't be sitting like this or in Indian style in practice. I'm sweating my ass off talking and showing wrestling moves. It's like, no, you guys are going to talk and do wrestling. I'm going to teach it. You look in here, take it in. I'll talk myself through it twice, step by step, break on 2. Number 1, I'm going to talk you through it 3 times. Get set. You're going for 3 minutes. Time. Number 2, I'll talk you through it. You're going for 3 minutes. Go. Okay, number 1's going again. Number 2, okay, next technique. Look in, take a knee. Boom, boom, boom. We pull the kids who need the extra help in front of us. I put them over here with another coach. I will help them too, but we're working the room. And everything is like this. Okay. So I think when you kind of boil it all down, I'm obsessed with getting good really fast and not wasting a lot of time, because success loves speed, and you have to have those 3 things in place to do that.
That's awesome, man. Like I always wondered kind of where that step by step thing came from. and I really enjoy watching the videos and seeing that. And unfortunately, I didn't get out there when my son went out there, and hopefully we can get back out there at some point. Man, I appreciate it.
As soon as we hang up, I'll send you some invites. All you gotta do is we'll have them back, and you can come out. You can stay with us and coach with us. That would be an awesome time. Who knows? Maybe we'll just you can come out there and bring your podcast and interview some of our other coaches and do a tour. So as soon as we hang up here, I'll make a plan. We'll do that.
Dude, that sounds good, man. Yeah. Last thing I want to ask you before we close up episode 13 with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Nick Purler. I sent you a pack of Mat Clash. What do you think of them?
Love it. Yeah, so we distribute those out to my kids. So basically, for people who don't know, it's a card game, and so kids play, and it's a wonderful way for two things. And I told my athletes this. I'm like, when you're at a tournament and you're with your buddies, you want to do things that take your mind off of the next match.
Exactly.
Little kids especially. We don't want them running around, right? And you also don't want them staring at an iPad.
Right.
So a game like your Mat Clash game is tremendous for the kids to get in little piles, little huddles. And that's what I told my kids. I'm like, these are good to use at home, but you should have this in your backpack, in your wrestling bag, because when you're at a tournament, you can get new friends and you can sit around and you can play and you have fun. You make new friends, which ultimately most of the kids watching this are not going to be Olympic champions. I'm sorry. You're going to get more out of wrestling than you're not even going to remember the wrestling. You go to a wrestling camp, even our camp, you're not going to remember all the your favorite move necessarily. Well, you will then, but later. You get to 25, 30, 40, 45 years old, and you're talking to your son or daughter about wrestling camp and going to Fargo. You're going to remember the fun you had with your friends,
Right, yeah.
And you just do, because ultimately your parents too. You're like, man, I don't remember that match, but we had fun in the hotel that night, and then so-and-so dad got thrown out, and then your daughter beat the national champ and brought the big trophy. I mean, that's what sports are truly about, right? So,
right.
And when you're trying to make new friends and stuff, I think your game is tremendous for that. So I see that as one of the real values in it, because it's wrestling related, it's super cool and fun, and it's something for kids to do at tournaments. And that's the reason I encourage you to somehow push this out to teams, because I do think it's very cool. It gets them something to do, and the
long-term goal with it is kind of in that realm, and where the idea of it came from is we were at Super 32 a few years back, and the middle school division, I know the high school division just goes, but the middle school division had 3 hours in between matches, and you got kids zombieing out, right? Like looking at phones and iPads and things. And we were building these characters that you can see behind me, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do with them. And eventually, like now we're up to 8. We just released another one, and I came with this idea. I'm like, dude, like we're creating like wrestling Pokemon right here. Yeah. Like that's what this is. And I'm like, well, how does it work? And then we spent 6 months building it to where it would actually play out like a wrestling match. And it's a really cool thing. And long term, like we're going to release Wave 2 in early next year. We've already been working on the artwork, and then you can kind of like build your own set and kind of play it how you want. Okay, you want more takedowns, you want a higher scoring match, you can do that. You want to make it real defensive, you can kind of alternate and shift. So I think it's going to continue. It's going to keep building and growing. And but I appreciate the kind words on that. Nick Purler, Coach, I really appreciate your time today. This has been an absolute honor to get to sit and talk to you. I look forward to keeping up with you in the Purler Wrestling Academy. And again, I look forward to hopefully getting out there, like you said.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to plan that as soon as we hang up. And to all your followers and people listening, appreciate you tuning in. And I wish all of you kids tremendous success. And I appreciate you guys having us.
Yes, sir. Bmoney Beastin episode 13 is in the books.